this is Fiji. I'm in Fiji right now, and that's the sunset. You see that? That's the sunset. Now, can you tell me why there's light over there? Is that a sun?
Protesters staged a protest outside of the U.S. Embassy in Manila. They also called for the abolition of the 2014 Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement between the U.S. and the Philippines. Well, the U.S. Embassy in Jakarta also has seen over 100 activists holding anti-U.S. placards. Indonesia has the world's largest Muslim population, though it is not among the countries facing restrictions. In Sydney, about 1,000 people gathered to protest against the Muslim ban. U.S. ties with Australia have become strained after Trump said a deal between the two nations on refugee resettlement was dumb. Under the deal, the U.S. would take more than 1,000 asylum seekers held on Nauru and Manus. In return, Australia would take refugees from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras.
Please do not start marching till we have worn out every single pair of shoes we own, until our arms can no longer carry signs.
Planet Earth is under attack. What do we do?
Stand up, fight back!
We want a political leadership that is willing to stand up to Donald Trump. But Malcolm Turnbull won't stand up to Donald Trump because he is so wedded to their disgraceful xenophobic policies. When Malcolm Turnbull says that the United States is emulating Australia's policies over refugees and over Muslims, it's one bit of thing that he says which is true. Donald Trump is emulating Australia's policies, and we're here to say today that's got to stop.
Stop, Trump, don't throw away the keys! We won't stop till we free the refugees!
While thousands of protesters have descended on airports across the country, hundreds of attorneys have volunteered their services as well, pledging to help those detained, including a rotating team of lawyers at New York's Kennedy Airport. Camille Mackler is one of those attorneys. She's an immigration lawyer, director of legal initiatives for the New York Immigration Coalition, and she joins me now via Skype from JFK International Airport. Camille, thanks for being with us.
Oh, you're welcome.
So you've been at JFK on and off since these protests erupted over the weekend. Tell us what you and your colleagues have been doing there.
We've been lawyers, hundreds of lawyers have come over to JFK to try to help the individuals who are being caught up in this ban, and the families, trying to get information for the families who are waiting for their loved ones, and trying to help file legal challenges for the ones who are being detained. At first it started with, filing as many legal challenges as we could, and now that the stay is in place, is sort of making sure that that's happening, and also taking information for a potential future class action, or just for general knowledge of what's happening and a better understanding of what's happening.
From the moment of President Trump's inauguration, when there was rioting, street skirmishes with police just blocks away from the Capitol, to the massive gatherings a day later, millions taking to the streets in Washington and cities across the globe in women's marches.
Donald Trump has got to go!
Veteran political observers say the grassroots resistance to President Trump is like nothing they've ever seen. On just about every day of his administration so far, there have been protests, from the far reaches of Alaska to Brooklyn, where last night thousands gathered on the streets as Yemeni store owners went on strike to protest the travel ban. Trump's ban on travel for people coming from 7 majority Muslim countries and the backlash from it are emblematic of a new president determined to disrupt the political climate and those fighting tooth and nail against that change.
There are a lot of people who are excited about Donald Trump and what he is doing, but there is no question that he is facing more grassroots resistance upon taking office than any president in modern times. This absolutely reminds me of the 60s.
The people, united, will never be divided.
The protests have caught the president's attention. He sent 4 tweets on the demonstrations in the past 12 days. This morning, tweeting, "Professional anarchists, thugs, and paid protesters are proving the point of the millions of people who voted to make America great again." The protests also targeting lawmakers.
Good afternoon, Senator Susan Collins' office.
On Capitol Hill, congressional staffers say they're swamped with a massive spike in calls.
I will pass those along for you.
One Senate staffer tells CNN there hasn't been a moment since the inauguration when the phone hasn't been ringing. Many of them weighing in against President Trump's cabinet nominees, especially the Education Secretary nominee, Betsy DeVos. The offices of Senators Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski are inundated. They're the only 2 Republicans who publicly opposed DeVos's confirmation.
I have heard from thousands, truly thousands of Alaskans who shared their concerns.
Apps for contacting members of Congress have made it easier than ever, and tweets and posts from activist groups have spurred them on. Is this just a temporary backlash or the groundswell of a new movement?
He is governing in a way that will accentuate rather than bridge the divides we saw in the campaign.
Well, the Trump administration has imposed fresh sanctions on some Iranian individuals and entities. Those affected are barred from accessing the U.S. financial system or dealing with American companies. As part of secondary sanctions, companies from other nations that deal with these Iranian individuals and firms may be blacklisted by the United States. These sanctions come days after Iran's ballistic missile test. A senior administration official said the latest sanctions were the initial steps in response to Iran's provocative behavior.
Another day, another fresh round of protests directed at U.S. President Donald Trump. In Washington, D.C. and many other cities, legions of demonstrators continue to rail against the administration. They say they are fed up with Trump's efforts to bar immigrants from 7 mostly Muslim nations from entering the U.S. Trump is doubling down, lashing out through his preferred medium with a series of tweets. One reading, "The opinion of this so-called judge, which essentially takes law enforcement away from our country, is ridiculous and will be overturned." In office a little more than 2 weeks, Trump now faces a growing chorus at home and abroad unhappy with his performance.
electric's gone, I take it. The electric's gone. That is unbelievable. Never seen anything like it.